we are now talking to Pandurang Hegde in Sirsi, and we're interested to know how it is that the Chipko movement came to be transplanted in the south of India as the Apiko movement. There obviously were some similarities between the two. There are differences between the two. Issues were slightly different. What was it that brought about the Apiko movement, and to what extent was it inspired by Chipko?
Yes. The Apiko movement, Apiko is a Kannada term, the vernacular Kannada language of the state of Karnataka, which means to embrace the trees. Apiko means to embrace the trees, which is very similar to Chipko.
So it means, the word means exactly the same thing.
Yes, exactly the same. The motivation is obviously because of the kind of destruction which was taking place in the tropical forests of Western Ghats. You know, Himalayas is a young mountain, and Western Ghats is much older than the Himalayas, which has the tropical forest. Western Ghats has tropical forest, and it was getting destroyed at a very rapid pace, and people were very much worried that destruction of the tropical forest was damaging an agriculture ecosystem which was living for almost 1,500 years. Because this agriculture system, which is known as spice gardens, was very much dependent on the tropical forests surrounding the regions in Western Ghats. And the issue was that the government wanted to replace the natural tropical forest, which was very rich in biodiversity. It wanted to clear fell, or it had already clear cut the natural forest, and it wanted to raise monoculture teak plantations for earning money. And this trend, this policy of the government of converting the natural forest into monoculture plantations has had adverse effect on the agriculture systems. And this was the motivation for which people were very much agitated, and they wanted to launch a movement. And they had heard about Chipko, and the villagers asked whether we can get somebody from the Chipko movement to teach us how to launch a similar movement in the tropical forests of Western Ghats.
I see.
And that is the time that Sundarlal Bahugunaji came down to Sirsi, and he met these people who were very much concerned about destruction of the tropical forest. And then after meeting them in a very small village called Balegate, there were about 100 people, youths, old men, women, children, in the primary school there. All these people took an oath. Bahugunaji addressed his oath to protect the forest, and in a non-violent Gandhian way. And they said if they are going to fell the trees, they would embrace and launch the Apiko movement. This was in 1983, August
1983.
And after this oath, Bahugunaji addressed many meetings, and then he left for Himalayas. So the sowing of the seed of the Chipko in the south was done by the leader of the movement, Sundarlal Bahuguna.
I see.
And after 1 month, in September, people spontaneously launched a Pico movement. They went and hugged the trees which were about to be felled, because they had already petitioned to the government that please don't fell the natural forest. But the government didn't take any notice of it. And it went ahead with the felling of the trees. And all these villagers who took the oath with Bhogunaji said, okay, now we are implementing this oath. So they went and embraced the trees. And that is how the Chipko became very inspirational to launch the Apiko movement in South India.
And so the movement was fairly spontaneous, didn't require a lot of organization from you or from outsiders. It was the people themselves who embraced this philosophy of Sundarbal Bhugana and implemented it by hugging the trees when people were coming to cut them.
Yes, it was more spontaneous.
And so the organization that you are a part of, that Chipko is associated with, called Prakriti, was a registered organization, registered with the government as a non-profit organization, right? How did that come about?
You see, in 1983 we launched a Pico movement. From 1983 to 1990, we were continuously launching this movement on several fronts. It is not just one district.
I see.
It was all through several hilly regions of Western Ghats in Karnataka as well as in Kerala.
I see.
So it has spread very widely, which is unimaginable. And people would just say that, look, we want to launch. So Bhogunaji came back again, trying to teach how to run a movement. It was a very great contribution.
I see.
Because the minute details of running a movement, which he had learned with the Chipko, he passed on that skill to the Apiko volunteers here.
I see.
And I think that was very instrumental in spreading this movement from one region to other in various parts of South India.
I see.
And only after 7 years we were able to achieve the change in the forest policy.
What change was brought about?
The government agreed to stop the clear felling of natural forests,
I see.
which was a big victory.
And that was a piece of legislation from the state government? Or
Yes,
policies?
it was a policy decision by the state government of Karnataka.
I see.
But eventually what Chipko achieved, the success of moratorium on felling of green trees in Himalayas, above 1,000 meters.
I see.
The similar kind of moratorium in 1990 was enacted by government of Karnataka, that no green trees will be felled in the Western Ghats.
In the Western Ghats at
Yeah.
all?
So that was a big victory, but we were able to achieve this victory because of the Chipko, the goodwill of the Chipko.
I see.
And after achieving this success, we said, what are our objectives henceforth? Because protection is one objective. Second is regeneration of the forest. And the third is renewable use of energy. And what is the alternative development in the tropical forest? That is the main objective of Apiko. So the movement phase was over, but how to address the other issues? And that is where the volunteers decided to register a legal entity called Prakriti, which means nature. In order to do research, in order to take up projects which is going to show how we can sustainably make a living without destroying the forests in Western Ghats.
So the organization Prakriti exists today, and it is functioning as the umbrella organization within which Apiko movements do occur or don't occur. What is the relationship
is a registered entity to take up the projects which are basically kind of research projects to support the movement.
I see.
It's a kind of support base, a group supporting people's movement, not just APICO. Like we launched Save Honeybees campaign.
Launch what?
Save Honeybees.
Save honeybees, I see.
Trying to protect the indigenous honeybees. We launched movement to protect the coastal ecosystems, movement against the pollution of Kali River, which is Kali Bachao Andolan, Save Kali campaign, the campaign to protect the indigenous rice varieties of these districts, conserving the biodiversity of the region. So all these very diverse areas of work needs a very methodological research support, and that is being done by Prakriti. But APICO itself has diversified, not only as a movement protecting forest, but trying to address numerous issues which is being thrown open and people are getting affected. So the grassroots movement has diversified, and Prakriti is helping this diversified movement with its research inputs.
So what are the principal issues with which APICO is occupied today? What are the principal issues that APICO activists have been involved in recently?
Recently we have been addressing the issues of how to sustainably harvest the non-timber forest produce. Wild varieties of spices available from the forest. So without destruction of the forest, how can we remove that? That is one of the issues we have engaged, like cinnamon leaves, extraction of cinnamon leaves, or extraction of gums and raisins from the forest, which has very high value. But if you destroy the trees, then you destroy this resource. So these are the kind of issues, but frankly speaking, these are very issues on the ground, but the issues which we don't see is the onslaught of globalization, which is uprooting the people from their relationship to nature. People's relationship to nature is disrupted, and when that happens, I think it is very difficult to launch any kind of movement, and that is happening at a very rapid scale in Western Ghats as well as Himalayas.
So what do you see as the principal challenge to APICO today?
The challenge is, okay, we have achieved the changes in the policy regarding forests with the APICO movement, but whatever the forests have been saved is under threat due to globalization, due to the kind of development which we think will bring prosperity. So the challenge is, how do we change this concept of development, in which it is not destruction of the natural resources, but it is protection of the natural resources and bringing in prosperity to the people.